Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Salty Hose. This is Claire.
This is Mel.
And together we are the Salty Hose. Coming at you again, deep from behind, because we know Mel likes that now.
Love it deep from behind.
Deep from behind, the Zion Curtain. So, how are you today, Mel? How's your week been?
Oh, I'm doing okay. You know, it's one of those kind of cold winter days where I can't wait to get back to summer. Flip-flops, shorts, tank tops,
yes.
Warmth. This air could be better.
It could be way better. Please let the snow come.
Right?
Yes, for those of you outside Utah, we're having an unusually there's just literally no snow.
There's no snow. And I don't know if this is unusual or if this is going to be our new normal with climate change.
Yeah. I guess it's all Canada's fault though, right?
Sure. How?
I guess this year that's what it's like to do with high pressure from Canada or something, which is why we're not getting the snow.
Oh, those Canadians.
Those bloody Canadians.
I feel like bursting into song from the original South Park movie. Do you remember that?
No.
Blame Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Blame Canada.
Love it. That's, all their fault.
Yeah. How was your week?
I am trying to be really intentional to not go, oh my God, it was crazy, because I realize that I do say that every week.
But it's true every week.
Well, it is, but I'm trying to shift my focus. And, I did have, as you know, I'm in some classes, and there was an aspect of the class this week that was just so enraging and also fascinating.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, it was basically about badgers.
Badgers?
Badgers.
Like the animals?
Like the animals.
Okay.
So, bear in mind, this is a poetry class.
Okay.
Well, it's actually a literary traditions class, if I'm getting technical. But we were discussing the poetry of yet another ye olde time white English poet. Such diversity.
That's the only kind, though, right?
Oh, it's the only ones that are good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's right.
Yes. I mean, other ones exist, Melissa, but clearly they're not good. So badgers, we got into this badger discussion specifically about the howl of a badger.
Do badgers howl?
Badgers howl.
Interesting.
Yes. And was it more of a howl or a scream? And I was just there going, sweet baby Jesus. Literally, what, why, just how is this happening? I am here for intellectual stimulation. Because, I'm not having stimulation of any other kind. So at least the brain could do with a wee bit of probing. And after 20 minutes, I lied that I had heard a badger sound because I just wanted it to stop.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like faking an orgasm, right?
Right? Yes.
You're like, please just let it be over.
Just whoo, there you go.
I'm all done. I'm all done with this now. Is it, when you fake an orgasm, is it more of a howl or a scream?
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on who you're with. I don't know. But if you Google a badger howl or scream, it could sound similar.
Interesting. I'm going to have to look that up now.
Yeah. Channel your inner badger next time you have to fake an orgasm.
I hope I never have to fake one again.
I hope this for you too. I hope that nobody has to, but let's get real. That's a whole other podcast episode though.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Well, what are we talking about today, Claire?
Today we are talking about something that's going to sound like rage baity,
Okay.
but it's really not. I have this question: why do men hate women? And I know immediately that the gates of hell would open and I would be called a dick puncher. But that's actually not where I want to go with all of this today. I actually want to try to make sense of there's just anybody that's been in the apps, there's just a weird tension, or dare I call it animosity? I don't know. How do you feel in the apps?
Yeah, I think that's
I don't
right.
know.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the bios I read, there's some thinly veiled or sometimes not even veiled at all contempt from men towards women. Now, I do kind of want to mention that, we're coming at this from the female point of view. We're both women. And as I understand it from some of my male friends that are on the apps, they feel something similar, right? It feels hard to them too. Maybe they feel some contempt coming their way. So I do want to acknowledge that, but we're going to speak from our own perspective since, I mean, really, that's all we can do, right?
That's all we have. But I love that you mentioned that, because I think that is literally from the get-go the point to make, is that, like, who is winning here?
Nobody.
Nobody.
We're all losing together.
We're all losing together. And I think that's, a point that we're missing. Because it's like you talk to anybody and everybody's ex-husband or ex-partner is a narcissist.
Right.
When you're talking about the men, right? And everybody's ex-wife or ex-partner is a raging bitch. And that can't statistically be true.
It can't.
It just can't be true.
Not all men are narcissists and not all women are bitches. It cannot be correct.
It cannot be correct.
So what's happening?
Well, hat tip to the situations that are, because, those do happen. And actually, funny story, a friend and a colleague of mine was working in another setting and heard my ex-husband's girlfriend at the time talking about this horrendous ex-wife.
Oh, no. They were talking about you?
They were talking about me. But this person was a real one. You got those friends that are just like a real one.
Yep.
And she walked over and she goes, "Excuse me, but I need to correct this conversation."
Little interjection.
It was so cute. And she was like, "I have known Claire for over 10 years. And, she said lovely things." And she is like, "That is not the same person you're describing." I had never met this woman. So obviously she was going on the descriptions of me that she had heard.
Sure.
Which, is totally fine, question mark. I don't know. Ish. But it brings us back to this point, the way we take our stories. I'm certainly guilty of it, I think, if I was being truthful and doing a deep dive. I mean, there's been some egregious situations, but
I was going to say, do I need to bring up the shitty pants again?
Yeah, well, that will live forever. So yeah, that was not a good situation. But how did we get here? So a lot of things. It's actually a lot of things that put together make a lot of sense. We're going to start with a scientific term here. So
Ooh.
The accumulation of differences. I believe that's a sciencey term too, Mel. You're the scientist.
Accumulation of differences.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I need a little bit more clarity on that term. So if we think about biological evolution, we are talking about the accumulation of differences over time. That's certainly one way you could define evolution.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good way to define evolution.
Yeah.
But I suspect we're talking here more about a cultural evolution than a biological evolution, although obviously that's going to come into play when we're talking about sex and gender roles.
So I want to talk about this amazing book that I can't believe I've never read before that just made me think about all of this. And it came together like this amazing possible solution to your question. What do we do about all of this? So it's called Caliban and the Witch.
Good title. Love the title. I've not read it, so you're going to have to break it down for me.
Well, it's funny. I originally thought it was an older book, but I guess it came out in 2004. So it's by Silvia Federici. I don't know. Italian is not my strong suit.
Same.
Yeah. So Miss Silvia. And
is it Dr. Silvia?
Is it?
I don't know.
Well, let's just call her Dr. Silvia. She deserves it, honestly, after writing this book, because it was really incredible. So she brought together a ton of sort of social ills, control, economic, all of these things to kind of explain why we're in this, honestly, shitty dating situation right now.
I love it. We're getting all academic on this problem.
We're getting academic on the problem of dating in 2025 in Utah specifically. So she goes all the way back to the 4th century. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, we're going far back today. And when Christianity became sort of a formal religion, and the dudes in Christianity were kind of scared of the ladies. So yeah, you might have seen a little story we posted this week that talked about one of the prophets. I don't know if he's the current one, the new one. I can't keep track.
I have completely lost track. I don't really follow it at all.
That kind of makes me happy, though.
I know, right?
Yeah, you're just I don't know, because I don't care.
Blissfully unaware.
Yeah. Well, he had made the point that women getting educated, which he said he did agree with, but that it was frightening men. Direct quote, frightening men.
Oh, my God.
Yes. But this isn't a new idea. So
No.
back in the 4th century with the rise of Christianity, or, the sort of solidifying it as a religious perspective.
So we're kind of talking like Constantine here, right? When
Yeah.
he adopted Christianity, moved the capital from Rome to Constantinople. Yes, is that kind of the time frame we're in?
Yeah, just like people were getting on board with this
Right.
idea.
Okay. It's
And-
becoming a state religion, in
Yes.
other words.
Yeah, like a recognizable, you are
Yeah.
a Christian kind of a situation. So the men's was frightened of the women's, even back then, all the way back to the 4th century. And they, particularly when it came to desire and sexuality.
Oh, yeah.
So
Scary.
frightening. We have such power. So they were mostly afraid of their own feelings.
Okay.
So their own feelings of desire. And instead of addressing that, they were like, these lady people are making us feel weird, so something like needs to be done about it. Does that sound familiar?
I mean, yes, it does sound kind of familiar.
So think about what was she wearing, all of that kind of.
Oh, so like pushing responsibility onto women for the sexual urges that they might be having?
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is where it kind of started, although it was followed by a period where actually sex work and prostitution was normalized and actually widely accepted. But this is where, and anybody who's been in the Mormon church, and as Mel and I have talked about before, the shame around sexuality started at this point.
Okay.
So this is where we can trace it back to. So if tracing things back to the roots helps,
I mean, I think a historical perspective is always good, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't just arrive like in this vacuum, right?
Right.
We stepped into thousands of years of cultural evolution. So I think it makes sense to explore some of these strands.
Yeah, and I love the word evolution here because men and women, and how obviously we're speaking very heteronormatively, tively, in cisgendered fashion here, but there really is a historical basis for why we feel the way we do, probably, about each other. So we've got this little seed planted, and then we move through a lot of centuries. So really everything that happened before the 16th century, and actually things were quite good from a gender perspective. There was not the same kind of feeling of defensiveness or, pitted against each other. Like there was no need for, say, a feminist movement at this point because people were just chilling. And part of that sort of pre-feudal times was the subsistence economy.
Okay.
Right. So like people just subsisted.
So in other words, maybe we didn't have time for some of this conflict because we were just focused on survival?
Well, and also, yes, and labor had not been commodified at that point.
Interesting.
So people were like growing their wee vegetables, raising their cows or whatever to kill for meat or rabbits, whatever people
Whatever
ate.
they did.
I don't know really what people ate between the 3rd and the 16th century, but like you built your home with your hands and you didn't like go get a custom home builder, so.
Okay, so there's less division of labor, you're saying,
Yes.
in a societal way, but also maybe in a household as well.
Yes. So
Okay.
the household, the family, whatever, this little unit was all about how do we subsist
Right.
together and make sure everybody's fed, make sure everybody's warm when they need to be warm. Everybody is taken care of because obviously, like today, that's the majority of people, right? You had the rulers and the people with power and influence, money, all that. But, that was how most people lived.
Right.
So people were honestly like pretty chill. And they just, I'm not saying it was like, let's make America great again by going back to the 4th century.
Oh, I don't think I want to go back to a time without birth control or modern
Right.
medicine or vaccines or clean water because,
Fair.
I hear what you're saying about gender roles, but we do want to be careful about romanticizing the past.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, and there were people like clubbed to death with axes and witches, which we'll get into. That was a wee bit later, but
Right. And Europe was not a peaceful sort of place.
No.
Really at any time in history.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, some of the wars that you read about in sort of the middle of Europe, like the 30 Years' War, in places that depleted the population up to 50%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't like all sunshine and roses. That's not what we're saying, fam.
Absolutely
just to make it
not.
clear.
Yes, we are not advocating for a return to
Traditional
this system.
European values. No, thank you.
We could like start a political party and go next level. We'd be like, we would like to make a return to 10th century Europe.
I mean, I'd be dead of sepsis. So
That's yeah, life expectancy was probably what, like 40 then or something? I don't know.
I mean, that's actually kind of an interesting, fun question, right? So the life expectancy on average was quite a bit lower.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like some people have the idea that like the average was the time people lived. So they're like, oh yeah, everybody died in their 30s. But actually, that's not the case because you're averaging things together. There was a really high rate of infant and juvenile mortality, as well as things like death and childbirth. But if you lived through those things, you were probably fairly likely to live to a decent age, 60, 70 even, I think was not really uncommon.
Will you be robust, right? Like, it's like survival of the fittest, and you made it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we want to be careful with that term, but sure.
Yes. You're like, no, don't go there, don't go there. So, yeah, that's not saying it was perfect. There was very, very bad things. But in terms of gender, things were just like very, very different. Because I think sometimes, you know, we like to put it into the terms of, well, it's always been like this. Like these are natural, you know, kind of roles. And that's just not accurate, no matter what you think about it.
I hate that so much.
Yeah.
I really do. You hear this a lot today, like, and you hear it not just in the Mormon church, but like in society in general. People are like, oh, well, I'm just a man. That's my nature. I can't control myself because my sexuality is so much more powerful than yours. Like, you wouldn't understand. My sexual urges as a man are so much more powerful than ours. But you know what? If you rewind 1,000 or 2,000 years, actually everyone understood the opposite. Everyone thought women were the highly sexualized, wanton, you know, gender that could not keep their primal urges under control. Yeah. Everybody knew it. Women were just more sexual than men, whereas today everybody just knows that men are more sexual than women. Yeah. And both of these things are actually wrong.
Yeah. You're like, this is not accurate.
No.
And again, who is winning here?
We're all losing.
We're all losing.
Yeah.
And like, this is the point, is like, it's almost like colonialism in a way, right? Like classic colonialism is you go to a peaceful spot, you divide the community, create arbitrary groups or classifications that aren't even there, and then people start to fight each other, and the colonizer just sits back and goes, ha, ha, ha. And I kind of feel like that between men and women. And now we're at this terrible like stage of dating because the enemy is each other.
Yeah. Or maybe you take a conflict that's already there and exacerbate it.
Yes.
Right? Throw fuel on the fire. That's another like thing right out of the playbook.
Yeah.
All right. So to summarize this book, tell me more. What's the central thesis here?
So that is actually kind of a difficult question, especially with somebody with a brain like mine, because there is so much in this book. Everybody has to read this book. We should have a Salty Hose book group. It's a short read. I think it's just a little over 200 pages, but honestly, it covers everything from a great span of centuries and also economics. There's some Marxism in there, even though a lot of this stuff predates Marxism as we understand it. But to give you like the Cliff Notes version, so we start off in the 4th century talking about religion. We move through feudalism, and then you have this transition from feudalism to capitalism. And then you get the intersection of patriarchy and how patriarchy was really needed in order to make capitalism work. So we've gone from that overly idealized by myself, like little setup of gender in terms of men and women, subsistence economy. So men and women work together probably in equal amounts in most occupations. Now, occupations obviously not in the way that we understand it. Money was a very different concept back then. Of course, it did exist, but not in the way of, you know, your little direct deposit right now for all of your labor and then the way we exchange money. But it did exist. But men and women were in things called guilds.
Oh, yes, the guilds.
The guilds. And so, think of that as like your little professional body equivalent today. And this is sort of how society was organized. And women dominated in the medical field in particular. And that was true right up until the 16th century. And actually, there was birth control, would you believe?
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. You're like, it was not effective.
Not as effective.
Yeah, but it was like herbs and, they'd make little suppositories and all kinds of concoctions out of it to, make your period come quickly or even, to force a miscarriage or all those kinds of little tricks. But because obviously people had to learn those back in the day. And then we come into the plantation era, and this is where things really started to change to how we recognize them today. So we were very communal back then. We had lots of common space. Think of it like, have you ever heard the idea that the word like gossip is bad?
Oh, yeah. I love gossip, though.
It's actually a good thing. It's one of those things that's like historically being demonized, but that's how people lived, right? They got together, they talked, they shared, but now it's seen as like gossipy, a bad thing.
Is it because the term's been feminized? Is it a bad thing because it's associated with women?
Well, it's like slut, right? Whore, all the terms that you have to preface with man if you want to relate it to a man.
In my personal experience, men like to gossip just as much as women.
Yes, 100%. Have we seen The Real Housewife husbands? Like, yeah. They love a good wee gossip too. So things like that. Or, for example, if you hear when you're like discussing aid. I feel like I sound very Irish there. Aid.
I love it when you sound Irish.
Aid. And it's really funny to see actually how the subtitles interpret it. But I digress. So when you look at aid, say, for example, in a developing nation, a lot of times people will come in and be like, oh my goodness, look, the women have to walk 2 hours a day to get water. Like, let's fix that. Let's put water in the village. A lot of times people don't like it because that's actually their time together.
Oh, interesting.
To talk, to walk together, to be away. And so it's kind of a case of, Western ideology going, we know what's good for you. Let's isolate you and make it easy to get your water so that you don't like talk to your friends and your people and get that sense of community anymore. I'm not suggesting that's a conscious idea when you're putting in water in a village to stop the walking, but it's all part of going back to the 16th century idea of enclosure. So enclosure was basically like people lived on the land together and they farmed and they did all the things. And then the English, who are kind of responsible for all the major fuck-ups in the world.
Well, not all of them. I mean, to be fair, we've taken that torch and carried it forward.
That is true. But I mean, where did a lot of the people from here come from? So the Puritans brought it with them. I am being a little rude just because I'm Irish. And we have a history with the English, you could say.
I think that's a fair comment.
So yeah, just kidding. My brother-in-law is actually English and I adore him. So he's wonderful. We always tell him, you're not great collectively, but individually, we like you. So yeah, the English brought about this idea of enclosure. So basically equate it to, you know how everybody has property lines now and fences and walls? That was from the 16th century. People were a lot more communal, wasn't really like a boundary thing. So we separated into these little enclosures, and as a result, we became quite isolated back then in the 16th century. So also at this time, we're moving away from feudalism to capitalism. And all of these factors needed to come together in order to make it work. So we had talked earlier about like the family unit and its purpose, right? So for subsistence, it was like everybody got stuck in, grew the food, built the house, did all the things. And now the family unit is coming together as basically the ability to feed industrialization and capitalism. You're raising the workforce.
Right.
So this is where we have come to at this point. So a lot of really interesting things start to happen here in terms of gender and the division of labor. And put in really simple terms, it's just the idea that now labor becomes commodified, so the dudes need to go out to work and the little ladies need to stay home.
That makes sense. And they need to stay home because, of course, we're the ones that give birth to babies.
Yes.
Right. So it's more difficult. Is that the idea? At least on a continuous basis for us to be. I mean, it's hard to go work in a factory 16 hours a day if you're nursing a baby. Is that?
It's very difficult. That's like the compassionate view.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
Things.
Interesting.
It has more to do as well with the idea that if you are out laboring all day, which, hello, would be marvelous, that you come home to a meal, that you come home to things taken care of, that you don't have to do any work like you did in the subsistence economy. So you've gone and done your paid work and you get to come home and relax now and everything is taken care of. I mean, you and I have single mommed it. We work long hours. And wouldn't it be lovely to come home to like your dinner on the table?
Sure.
And a clean house, just
Yes.
magically cleaned. Because I come home on a Friday and I'm like, holy shit, what happened? And it's just because you're tired, right? So you maybe don't do the dishes every day and then they build up or, you know, that kind of thing. So women became support for capitalism basically at this point. And it also accentuated commodified labor and unpaid labor.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So really, you do still have two people working long hours, but one is working
yes.
outside the home and one is working inside the home.
Exactly. And arguably, working inside the home in the 16th century was a lot more difficult than working inside the home today.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you had no labor-saving appliances for
Nope.
one thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Water, access to water. How do you cook? So now that became the women's issue. And the men's went off and did their work. Labor became commodified. And so here we are. Like that was like setting the scene for today.
I mean, actually, that sounds bad for both partners.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Because it's created a separation.
Right. But also both forms of labor, you know, both someone going out to work outside the home, right, for a wage rather than taking care of their own homestead or whatever. That doesn't sound particularly pleasant. Working inside the home also does not sound particularly pleasant.
No.
Back in the day.
Because nobody's like helping anybody.
Yeah.
You're very divided.
Isolation. Like
Isolation. Yeah. So you've got this physical isolation with the enclosures, and then you have this isolation away from your partner, separation of the value of the labor. And I think that that's really important because commodifying labor made it valuable. And I mean, even currently, we don't respect domestic work, unpaid domestic labor.
Oh, definitely not.
And who carries out the majority of it?
Women.
And that is true. Like I'm talking data points. It is true of every single country on earth.
Yeah, and it is true, by the way, for couples where both partners work outside the home for a wage, equal hours. The data is very clear that the women is still doing most of the domestic work, unpaid labor.
Yeah. And this was really revealed during COVID.
Yeah.
Right. When everybody suddenly was at home and both partners were working and yet children had to be like schooled and everything was happening.
Guess whose job that was?
Yes. Surprise, surprise. Not. So, yeah, like we're not making shit up here. And this isn't the dick punching session. This is show.
I can't wait for the dick punching session. Just kidding.
Yeah, I mean.
Only if it's consensual.
Yes, then the dicks will be punched. But, I mean, you can see how some of what happened back then leads to some of that now on both sides, right? The negative perception.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. We talked about like this contempt, almost this like low-key contempt maybe for women. And we're not the only ones to say it. I see reels all the time about this on the Instawebs.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, where they're like, why do men have this contempt for women? And I'm sure it doesn't feel good to men either that they have these feelings, confusing feelings towards women, right? Because they want to have sex with them, but then they low-key kind of have disdain for them too.
Right.
Like, that's confusing and not pleasant. So
for anyone.
No. So at this time as well, the kind of sex thing came back into it too. So for that period, I mentioned before, the sort of the need for sex was kind of like okay, and there was a pretty legitimized sex industry that everybody was kind of cool with at this point. And with the emergence of capitalism in the 16th century, you also saw, kind of going back to the 4th century mindset of, women are leading the men astray and, we can't be seen to be doing this. So taking away a legitimized sort of sex workforce, if you want to call it that, then it made things get weird, and it introduced shame and all of those great things that we know now, know and love, and that were definitely solidified through our membership in the Mormon Church of the shame around sex and desire and all of those things.
I mean, it makes sense. It's a mechanism for control.
Yes. Yep. And shame, particularly, shame towards women for having sex with men, and shame for men in having these desires. So it kind of got all clandestine.
I mean, once again, this is bad for everyone.
Bad for everybody. Nobody is winning. And that's what I really want to highlight here, is that absolutely nobody is winning here. So you get this big division, and, women are sort of pushed into the home. There's this demonization that occurs, again, in order to make this economic system work. It couldn't have worked without it. And I wanted to share a little snippet from the book.
Please.
And if anybody's reading it, it's on page 96. We'll give you the page reference. So all of these things that we're talking about are all coming together. And it says, women tried to resist this onslaught, but faced with the intimidating tactics male workers used against them, failed. Those who dared to work out of the home in a public space and for the market were portrayed as sexually aggressive shrews, or even as whores and witches.
Oof.
Yeah, that's kind of aggressive, right?
Extremely.
Yeah. And it goes on to say, indeed, there is evidence that the wave of misogyny that by the late 15th century was mounting in the European cities reflected in the male obsession with the battle for the breeches, and with the character of the disobedient wife, pictured in the popular literature in the act of beating her husband or riding on his back, emanated also from the self-defeating attempt to drive women from the workplace and the market. So who knew?
Wow, great quote. I mean, and kind of what you're telling me is all of these self-described alpha males that you see on TikTok or on Instagram is not a new phenomenon.
It's not. And they're actually deeply affected by the 15th and 16th century, but they don't know it. Maybe this is what we should be bringing up in therapy. Are you aware that you were pawns in the setup of the system of capitalism, and that's why you hate each other? But I think it's a pretty legitimate, solid argument. I just felt like I had lots of exclamation points going off in my head when I read this, and it all came together like this puzzle, and there's things about bodies in here too. And what you mentioned earlier with nobody winning, you don't win when you go out and work all day and you're exhausted, your actual body is exhausted. That's not winning.
No.
And so you don't really have this autonomy over your body anymore. Women certainly didn't here. This is where the mindset of if something happened to, say, a pregnant woman, that the fetus was prioritized over the life of the woman. So this is when this started to emerge. So again, not a new phenomena, deep, deep roots. And I think that sometimes when we look at social ills or difficult situations, we ask the wrong questions. And so it never gets fixed.
What questions should we be asking?
Well, I think we could be asking, who is benefiting? That could be a good place to start, because nobody, as we've said lots of times now today, is benefiting from the system. We're all kind of turned against each other. And so the battle becomes, for women, we have different waves of feminism, obviously. The current wave, if you will, actually is for equality between the sexes, not even for women, but also advocating for men, because men aren't equal when it comes to sharing of emotions and all of those things, right? So this social, political, economic equity for the sexes. So we're at a good point there where, none of these movements, though, would be necessary if all of this hadn't happened back then, because it split us down the line, and now we're punching at each other instead of how can we fix this? Like your question, that was a great question.
Well, and I think the answer is someone is benefiting. So back in the day, you were talking about the English enclosing things. Someone was benefiting, and it was the landowners, right, that were enclosing what used to be common spaces. Today, someone is benefiting. And, I don't know how you want to describe it, like the oligarchs that control our society.
Yeah.
Okay, the billionaires that control our society. People are benefiting and becoming enriched on the backs of this conflict between the genders. And not just genders, but, conflict between the races, right? Conflict between political parties. If you can set people at each other, where they're tearing each other apart rather than stepping back and looking at the system and who is actually benefiting from all this outrage, well, it's a great distraction, right? It's an opiate of the masses.
That's it in a nutshell, my friend. Exactly. It's a distraction. It's a diversion. So our questions are typically like, what's wrong with the men? Or how do we make the men better? I mean, we've definitely said that, right? And
I'm not going to stop asking that question necessarily.
We can still ask it with like deeper context, right? And then men are like, why does she never get off my back? Like, why is she a witch? And, again, diverting away from like the bigger issue in the system we're in. And like we're all tired, arguably, too, from all of these different roles.
Absolutely. I'm so tired.
Yes, like so tired. And so, one of the presidents said, I don't even know who, but it's something to the effect of like all the simple problems have been solved. And I so agree with that. Like I share all of this with great optimism because I really do believe, and not like fake positivity, like let me do a little jump and take a picture and be like, yay, smile. Like, no, like not that kind of bullshit. But the idea that I think a lot of things actually could be addressed, amended, developed, bringing us all to a brighter future because, not to sound overly idealistic, the divisive thing is not working. It's actually just furthering, as you mentioned, like they have different names through different ages, but basically the people with the most money and in control. Right? That division has always been there and it's always being served by us like fighting amongst each other. Witches are also interesting during this time because something that correlated, and obviously in the title of the book, were witches. And, I think when you hear like witches or witch hunt, you think of like The Crucible, Arthur Miller.
Oh, yeah.
All of that good stuff. It was actually kind of a bigger thing in Europe. And
right.
Funnily enough, the English.
You shock me.
It's so shocking. There's actually a really interesting correlation here. So where the highest rates of enclosures was also the highest rates, or were, sorry, my grammar's atrocious, were the highest instances of witch hunts too. So
Interesting.
There was a data point there, like a correlation.
That sounds to me then like it's an additional mechanism for control.
Absolutely. And they really just didn't like this like magic they almost perceived women to have. And it correlated with the idea that magic kills industry. So if you were, at whatever point developing drugs or medicine and somebody had like a little herbal remedy for that, it was, seen as this witchy magic. It was bad for industry. And so they didn't like it. And it was also attached to this idea of desire, intuition, all of these traits that generally, very generally speaking, women possess, right? So it was like to demonize that. This was all to do with like plantation culture, which as an Irish person, I know all about that because
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
How the English tried to conquer my wee land, at least one of their methods. They used many.
Yep.
Over long periods of time. So, interestingly enough, during that time, Scotland and Ireland actually didn't have any enclosures at that point.
Oh, wow.
And guess where there was also no witch hunt?
I'm going to go with Scotland and Ireland.
Yes. Woo. And so that's probably where we get the reputation for being like a wee bit witchy.
I like it.
Because they weren't really able to stamp it out historically because, they were focusing on their little enclosures in England.
I feel like you're a wee bit witchy, Claire.
I feel a wee bit witchy.
Yeah, in a good way, in the best way.
That. That's like the biggest compliment you could pay me. Thank you.
Aw.
We got a wee bit of the witchy. So that's a lot of stuff. I totally get that is a lot of stuff. But, to summarize it, we really are at the mercy, I guess, of historical practice.
Yes.
Development of economic systems. Now, this isn't like a diss on capitalism, which could be a whole other episode, let me say. But it's this idea that nobody is winning. So why are we fighting each other?
So what can we do about it?
Well, what can we do? The great solution. That is funny. How do you quantify that or summarize it into something that is like easy and measurable? Honestly, one place I think we could start is with somatics.
Okay. All right. Tell me more.
That's like a major fork from what we've been talking.
You said somatic, not semantic. Like somatic, like related to the body. Okay. Yes.
So yeah, give us the science-y soma. What does that word mean?
Just means body.
Yeah. So of your body. And you know that I'm the slightly woo-woo person of our little dynamic
A little
duo.
witchy once again.
Little witchy, yoga, all that, teach yoga. But I do love the idea of like somatic movement. And we've sort of been like sold this idea of like, just sit quietly in your mind. And that's all great. But we can't sit quietly in our mind if our nervous system is freaking the fuck out, right? Like if we're living in that sympathetic nervous state, our digestion is messed up. We're not sleeping. We're not relaxing. Our muscles, especially that psoas muscle, is tight because we're just stuck in fight and flight.
Yeah.
We don't do it like animals, right?
Right. Well, and I think there's pretty good data on this, right? So stress is actually quite healthy if it's acute stress.
Yeah.
But chronic stress is incredibly unhealthy.
Yes. Bad. We don't want the second type.
No.
Like the wee bit of stress is a motivator. Good.
Yeah.
The stuff that lives in your body, actually bad.
And I feel like most of us are kind of in this state of chronic stress all the time.
Because it's the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
You're juggling a lot. You're probably not sleeping great or getting long enough to sleep. This was also back to the 16th century, the time where kind of hustle culture and the idea that the grind was like a badge of honor emerged. And that is so destructive to our health and well-being.
Yeah, I feel like our constant connectedness is also somewhat destructive to our well-being. So always being on our phones, right? This idea that comparison is the thief of joy when we see other people's highlight reels and compare it to our actual real life. And then, also just every time you look at the news or social media, seeing the absolute atrocities that are being perpetuated around the world, this is stressful too.
Yeah, it's a lot to carry, right? We have access to so much stuff, and you need a pretty big bucket to carry all of that in. And where that comes into like men, women, dating, all of that stuff is self-regulation, right? How many of us have felt like that rush of adrenaline on like a dating app where, you're trying to read between the lines with basically a complete stranger and they say something and it like sets you off, or it sets a man off, which, I recently had a situation like this where I was chatting, it was very pleasant, and then the person made like a joke in scare quotes about Ireland and Irish people and no teeth and the the potato famine, which was a genocide, and then people connected it masterfully to people in the South in America. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I like that. And it, like, the gates of hell opened. I shared the text with you that you wrote back.
I read it. The joke, quote unquote, was, I mean, it was one of those where you're like, is that a joke? Because there actually is nothing funny about it, even if you take out the offensive bits.
Yeah.
And then he got incredibly aggressive and I would say abusive.
Yeah. And like, nobody will ever love you.
Yeah.
Like it escalated so fast.
Yeah, that contempt was not buried very far beneath the surface, was it?
Yes. And like a compassionate view of that is like, oh my God, like you felt like you'd messed up, right? And instead of going, oh, I feel a little weird, I might have messed up, you get that adrenaline and you're like, right, bitch. You know what I mean?
Right. Like more fun to unload an abusive monologue rather than take even one shred of accountability for your actions and words.
Or a wee pause.
Yeah.
Like just take a wee pause. So not trying to be overly idealistic, but I really do feel like if we had more access to techniques and self-regulation and, you know, pausing and being like, oh, what is that? And like, I'm guilty of it myself too, because, you know, sometimes if you're chatting on an app and somebody says something, you get that same rush, right? Of like, I think for me, it's more cloaked in like rejection sensitivity, more so than like the rage part. But it's that same like reaction in your body, right? Where like adrenaline spikes and you're like, I feel out of control.
Yeah.
And then you say something probably that if you thought about it for a wee second, you might not actually have said. So then we're pitted against each other, right? And again, nobody is winning.
All right. So somatic movement can help us bridge that gap. I'm really interested in this because I feel like this is an idea that's present in our society, and definitely it's present in, you know, the Mormon culture. This idea of dualism. So this idea that your mind and your body are two separate things, right? Yeah. Because your mind, maybe, you know, call it the soul or whatever, is something separate and distinct that sort of lives inside your head or your body. You know, personally, as, you know, an atheist and a materialist, I reject this idea. So I think your mind and your body are the same thing. But sometimes I feel like we get a little out of joint. So how can we use the somatic movement to help regulate ourselves better?
I think that's so accurate. And so then you have these big institutions like religion solidifying that idea of duality, right? And so if you just pray, or even if you just sit and meditate, it'll all be fine, right? But again, that's ignoring what's happening in our bodies and, you know, what is it they call it in animals? Pendiculation, when they just like shake it off. If they like fight, and then you'll see just like a gazelle like jumping around like a lunatic, but then they're like fine. And that's really it in simple terms. I always tell people, try this wee experiment. Get up in the morning, put on your favorite song. May need to be in headphones depending on your living situation. If you live alone, go for it, blast it, and just jump and dance around. Like,
wow.
Get your heartbeat going, like shake your arms, shake out your legs, jump, like actually jump, and just, you know, be your full lunatic self for like 4 minutes. And then sit down and try and do a wee bit of meditation.
Wow.
And I will put money on it. I will place a bet that if you consistently do that for a week or two, you will feel a difference.
I love that idea. Can I do it without the song? I have some sensory issues and I cannot have any noise whatsoever in the first hour of being awake.
That's fair. And honestly, that affects a lot of people for different reasons. Personal preference or even neurodivergence can also be very averse to sound first thing, like for that like first hour. So yeah, you can just get up and do it.
Okay.
Just jump around your room.
All right. I'm going to jump around.
Jump around.
My dog will be so confused.
Yeah, be like, what the hell is she doing? Maybe warn the people that you live with as well before you start doing this. And I'm not suggesting that while we're all in dating apps that we jump around as we're like talking to people, but just an awareness of the noticing, right? Because when we're thinking of the mind and the body as separate things, we maybe don't notice or can identify what that feeling feels like in our body. It just either feels like rejection or aggression, but it's like, oh, wait, no, there's actually like a response in my body. This little thing is spiked, but it will go down. Like if I just focus on my breath or, do something else, or just flap my arms around a little bit, and like I say, I'm not got this great vision of people in their living rooms like doing this, but part of the solution. It's obviously not the solution. Obviously the big solution is societal restructuring.
Right. So. That's a big lift though. I guess I'm more interested in maybe not a solution, but coping mechanisms. Like, what can we do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think somatic stuff is related to like the coping mechanism. But we all have a part in societal restructuring too.
That's
but
true.
It's kind of like horse and cart syndrome, right? Because in order for people to feel safe and comfortable and actually have trust between men and women, particularly in the sphere of midlife dating, it's like, well, we need some things first. That's always where we go, right? Whereas if there was an awareness of, we have a big collective history here in sort of separating people out. So, let's address that together and lean into that trust and maybe start rejecting some of those in our households. Like that's where it could start. And, that little quote that we read from the book, I think it's worth mentioning, looking at this in sort of current day industries, right? So let's look at MomTok for a minute.
I love MomTok.
I love MomTok. Super cool. Taylor Frankie Paul, right? Like,
I'm so excited for the upcoming Bachelorette with Taylor Frankie Paul.
I cannot wait.
Oh my God, stay tuned. I think we're going to do some wee recaps. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I love it.
100%. But honestly, I don't know if they, sat down one day and they're like, let's reject the patriarchal standards around capitalism. I don't know if that's how their first meeting started. I would guess not. But it's actually like a kind of giant fuck you to these systems in that here they are. They're like these wee young moms. They're at home. They're like, we're kind of bored. We'd like to do something. And so, they get matching tracksuits and start doing wee dances. And now they're all like huge CEOs.
I love it.
Right? And so that's actually the embodiment of this text. And I have to say that when I did a discussion on this book in class, I brought up The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And I was like, if they had been around in this time where they're like, go to the home, it's lesser, they'd be like, oh yeah? Watch me make a little cottage industry out of that, bitch.
One of the most fascinating things I find about that show is watching their husbands react to their success.
Ooh, yeah.
Because it's a double-edged sword. Like, you can tell they enjoy the money. In some cases, they enjoy the fame and their screen time.
Yeah.
But they're also very perplexed with how to navigate this sort of gender dynamic where their wife is the one making all the money.
Yeah. You can see the discomfort.
Visceral discomfort.
And yet, there's not really an exploration of that, right? They're just like, here we are.
Yeah, I think they're unsure what their feelings even are. And I mean, I can relate to that. The first time I did therapy, I remember sitting with this male therapist. He's a PhD clinical psychologist. And he would ask me really tough questions like, how did that make you feel? And I was like, I don't know. Bad.
Right? I don't like it.
Like I didn't have the emotional vocabulary to even express how I felt. And so he walked me through feelings 101. Like, he's like, the first step is we have to identify what we're feeling. All right. And then eventually with my current therapist, she asked me tough questions like, where do you feel that in your body? And I'm like, wait, what?
You're like, pardon?
The brain part of my body?
She's like, no, get out of your head. Is it in your tummy? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been fun. So I can have some sympathy for the men of dad talk. Well, to some extent.
Yeah, hell yes. And I think that is going back to solutions-oriented thinking about that, right? Identifying it as that instead of like, look at that fucking asshole. Sorry, I'm the sweary one today.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's like coming out. You're being very civilized, and I'm like, fuck, bitch, bleh.
Dick punch.
Yeah, I'm just a degenerate clearly, and have been affected by all of this feminist Marxist theory. But
yeah, well, the men of Dad Talk don't have that advantage. They're all still, to various degrees, embedded in this Mormon way of thinking. Now, some of them are active LDS. Others of them are ex-Mormon, but like we talked about a long time ago, I feel like they haven't necessarily examined their role within the patriarchy or how this affects them, how this affects the relationship with their wife.
Yeah, and how they like relate to women and the idea of the womanly success, right? And they're hearing it from their church leaders too, which is everything to do with this book, that like they're a little frightening. Like, look at them. They're making all this money.
Yeah.
They're a lot of them, particularly thinking about Whitney specifically in her wee musical now, and like very in her body, like, her body is her way of making money as a dancer right now. And their wee brains are just like, I cannot compute. Ah. Yeah. And I'm not saying then that you get this get out of jail free card or, because, let's talk about the male loneliness epidemic.
You know what? Let's actually talk about that for a second, because this is another thing I appreciate about Dad Talk, the husbands and partners and baby daddies or whatever, at least some of them.
Yes.
We are at least seeing some, I don't know if we want to say healthy, but we're seeing some male friendships, which I feel like this is a big theme in the male loneliness epidemic, right? They have no friends. They're isolated. They're looking for a woman to essentially outsource finding a friend group and like regulating their social calendar and their emotional landscape, right? So I do actually really love and appreciate seeing the scenes where like these men are hanging out, talking to each other, and sometimes even talking about their feelings.
Whoa.
I know.
And a wee side hug sometimes too.
Right? Like a little physical affection.
Touching.
Groundbreaking. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to give all of them a pass for everything looking at you, Zach. But at least I appreciate that they are forming male friendships. This is great.
It's huge, honestly.
We shouldn't be in charge of your social life. Have your own friends, please.
And we're not your unpaid therapist either to listen to all of your feelings. And again, this comes from this structure, right? The male loneliness epidemic, which I do kind of feel is bullshit. I feel like it comes, not that it isn't true, it is true.
Sure, men are lonely, but women are lonely too. And
yes.
The data shows kind of at the same rates, right?
100%. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Again, we're not existing in isolation here. So if one group's lonely, the other group is probably quite lonely too.
Right.
And I think it has to do with, well, why? And, a lot of the commentary is like, well, women have it like too good now and they earn money and shit. And so, they're just different. They don't want to date us as much, which is true. But why is that true?
That's right. What are you bringing to the table, sir?
Right? Have we been hurt, in some cases, physically, emotionally abused by partners in the past? Do we want that again?
Not really. Why would we put up with that if we don't have to?
Right? And hashtag, not all men.
Of course. Yeah.
But
a lot of lovely men out there.
Yes, absolutely. Like I don't know about you. I have some friends and their husbands that I just adore the both of them so much.
Yes.
And their husbands are like, they almost do this like by extension. I'm gonna look out for your single friends, like in a non-creepy, just really lovely way.
Of course. I'm gonna not mention his name, but we do have a friend in common. We're really good friends with his wife, but I feel like he's adopted both of us and he's so lovely.
Yes. And that happens.
Yeah.
I have another friend, again, not to identify them, but he's German, so she'll know who it is. But he is just like, I know he would like get in a horse with a spear for me if he had to. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like this kind of, but not in like a gross way, like in just this nice sort of male energy protective mode. So, we're not saying everybody here, but it's just this idea of the male loneliness epidemic being the fault of women is dragging us into this argument that clearly goes back centuries. And that's asking the wrong question.
Right. It's pitting each other. We're pitting ourselves against each other. How do I
Right.
say that correctly? I don't
Yeah.
know. Men are being pitted against women. Women are being pitted against men.
Yeah.
And just to go back to the beginning, we're all losing.
Nobody's winning here, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's winning. That's our little message for today. Nobody's winning. Let's ask the right questions. Let's not make this like just a horrible experience for everybody because nobody's winning.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, we've got so much to say.
We have a lot, but we're kind of running long. So let's continue this conversation, I would say, in a future episode or episodes. Let's continue this thread as we move forward.
It's a big thread.
It is a big thread.
It's a dangly thread.
Yeah. Yes.
I do have one question for you, though,
Please.
before we finish.
Yeah.
Looking at all of this, and again, you know, we hear a lot of negative talk about men from women and women from men. Did I say that right?
You did.
You know what I mean. Like, given all the changes, given what we know, like, what do you look for in a man right now? Like, what is hot to you? Not just like hot as in physical features, but like, what is like a, oh yeah?
Well, I mean, that's a complicated question. And, you know, desire is a complicated topic, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that I love some healthy masculine energy, right?
Yes.
Like, I am not like some of these alpha males like to say, you know, on TikTok, I am not looking to make a man into a woman, right?
Yes.
If I wanted to date a woman, you're right here in front of me. Like this, you
We
are
would be
perfection.
on it.
Yes.
Back at you, queen.
Yeah, you know, I like that, like you said, healthy protectiveness. I like that caretaking, right? In a very, you know, sweet way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that masculine energy. I even like some aggression,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
Channeled correctly.
But like in a,
Yeah.
yes, like a healthy manner. And I love that you say that because, yeah, it blows all of that negative, like alpha male energy out of the water in terms of like, you know, those bitches don't want a man. It's like we actually
we do. Yeah.
But like a self-regulated, nice, non-hostile. Like there's a difference between aggression and hostility, right?
Sure.
It's back to that healthy stress, non-healthy stress. Like that exists. But contrary to common opinion, we actually really do like that masculine energy, which is why
Yes,
we still
please.
crave the D.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah.
Give it to me. Give me all the testosterone. I love it. Just, you know, channel it appropriately.
Yeah, just make it nice.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Claire?
You know, I just agree with you in terms of what I'm looking for in a male partner. It's just, you know, give me that lovely protective energy that, you know, then you can feel all feminine, like, ooh,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
It's hard to put it to words. I find that noises help. So I want to feel, ooh. That's my badger howl.
Yeah,
Let's
is that a
bring it
howl or
full
a scream?
circle.
There we go. I love it. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up for now. Next time, stay tuned. We'll be back to your regularly scheduled dating profile reviews.
Salty bites.
Salty
coming at ya.
bites. All right, friends. Take care. Stay warm. We'll see you later.
See ya. Bye.